So when I've had the opportunity to talk to some of my Jewish friends about the New Testament, many of them have relayed to me that they were strongly advised to stay away from the New Testament for various reasons. They're told it's anti-Semitic, they're told that it's Christian fabrication, and the list goes on and on. What would you say to someone who's been told to stay away from the New Testament?
I can relate. I was loath to read the New Testament. The two axioms we grew up with is you can't be Jewish and believe in Jesus. Jews don't believe in Jesus. And the third would be everybody knows the New Testament is anti-Semitic. Why would I want to spend my time reading that? And so if somebody does share that with me, I share my own experience and how surprised I was when I did finally start to read it and discovered what everybody else who's read it knows. It's not anti-Semitic. It was written by Jews, about Jews, particularly about the Jewish Messiah. So I would encourage them to consider the source of that advice, and that it may not be accurate, and the best way to find out is open it up and read yourself.
Yeah, so why is it that some people are telling other Jewish people to stay away from the New Testament?
I think you've got a problem of controlling the narrative when information becomes available. So the best thing you want to do is you go, don't read the things that is going to tell you a different story than I'm telling you, which is essentially what it is, because just as Dan affirmed, it is a Jewish book written by Jewish authors, and it's about the Jewish people. So the problem that they have is not actually the issue with the New Testament, or as we would say, the Brit Chadashah, the New Covenant. The issue that they have is with the man that it speaks about, which is Jesus, Yeshua the Messiah. Even though his story is told as the Messiah is coming throughout the Hebrew Scriptures, we affirmed in his identity in the New Covenant writings. The problem with this is, if it is true that he's the Messiah, then those who control the system have a huge problem, because it means that they are no longer in control. So I think ultimately it's a matter of controlling people and controlling the narrative and hiding it for the purpose of establishing their own authority.
But that is key. Rabbinic authority is so ingrained, especially among the very religious. Quick story. Met a man who used to be a bodyguard for Rabbi Meir Kahane. And one day he was just kind of cooling his heels while the rabbi was doing something else. And so he picked up a book and started reading it. Another rabbi came in and said, Ma ta koreh, what are you reading? And he said, Tanakh. I'm reading the Hebrew Scriptures, the Bible. And the rabbi said, Tanakh, Rak Tanakh, only the Bible? He said, if you only read the Bible, you'll end up becoming a Christian.
Wow.
Which is exactly what happened, right? So it's not only the New Testament that is a dangerous book. The Tanakh is a dangerous book if it's read without the lenses, the goggles of the rabbinic literature that's an overlay.
Yeah, Shoshana, as a Jewish believer yourself, what are your thoughts on the New Testament?
So growing up, we regularly read through the whole Bible, and so I never even knew that Jewish people were not supposed to read from the New Testament. And so when I found that out, I was a little shocked, a little taken back, because as I got older and grew in my faith, I was seeing so many things jump out at me from the New Covenant, and I'm like, wow, and I'm going back through Scripture, and I'm seeing that they're pulling verses from the Old Covenant, so it's all tied together. And that really blew me away, and again, just shocked that so many Jewish people are told not to read from the New Covenant.
Yeah, and to your point, I think it's especially shocking given that the authors of the New Testament are Jewish, and they are drawing from the Jewish prophets. There is so much quoting is happening in the Brit Chadashah, the New Covenant Scriptures. It's very Jewish.
Well, I was just going to say, I also think it's very helpful to acknowledge that the Scriptures have been used by anti-Semites to teach anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
And so there is a reality there that I think it's important for us to acknowledge and to educate them and say, well, look, when John says the Jews, he's talking about the Judean religious leadership, and this is a community argument that's going on.
It's an internal argument.
Right,
yeah.
It's an internal argument. And so I just think it's important for our own integrity to perhaps acknowledge that as well.
Also to know that when we talk about the New Covenant Scriptures, it's not as new as one might think, because it's actually spoken of not only by the prophets, specifically Jeremiah, chapter 31 through 34, but Ezekiel as well. So while we refer to the New Covenant, it is deeply rooted, in fact, has its origins in the Tanakh, the Hebrew Scriptures itself.
Right.
And when we think of the weekly portions of Scripture that are read in the synagogue, so much of what we talk about the Tanakh is the Old Testament that's in the New. Many of those passages are passed over.
Oh, yeah.
And so many Jewish people never hear those passages in the Tanakh that are most cited and often cited in the New Testament.
Mhm.